Hey, so I've been recording these daily videos for a week now. And the first week I realized was me mostly talking about a personal development topic in each video, and then using things from my life experiences or thoughts or developments as supporting examples or evidence of whatever the topic I was talking about. And so for this next week, I'm going to try reversing that balance or distribution and talk more about my personal life and what's going on, and then maybe peppering in sort of the lessons and the personal development that I'm learning and that I get, and that hopefully you will be able to benefit from as well. And basically, I am on this journey to find my place in the world, and I would classify myself as an artist ultimately, which is a term that I have certainly not identified with for most of my life. I've associated the word artist with like a painter or a sculptor, like that kind of art, like the kind of art we would do in art class back in school, right? In elementary school or whatever. And also it seemed to be, I don't know, like an elitist term, sort of like, "Oh, I'm an artist, right? Like a snooty, that's what came to mind, is like a snooty person, character, artist. But, and I was a filmmaker, I was a screenwriter, I was a director, a filmmaker, not an artist. And lately I am coming to relook at that term, redefine that term, reassociate that term, look at it in a different way, because it really is about, artist is someone who creates something artistic, something that is not for any other means but to communicate something to the viewer or the observer of the art. In other words, to get somebody to feel something and have an experience by observing whatever that art is. And I think this term can be broadened beyond, like I was saying, the art class, the school art class, arts, painting, sculpting, and even beyond filmmaking. I think a lot of things can be food, for example. There are chefs that I think can be considered artists in terms of creating something new and being more about the full experience that their food and their dishes is giving the diner, as opposed to just giving them nourishment for their body, which is important too, of course. But you get what I'm saying, that artist is more about creativity and creating something that's new, that gives somebody an experience. And anyway, so I'm on this journey, as an artist, I think, to find my place in the world. And of course, that's a struggle for anyone. I think everyone is struggling to find their place in the world. But we know that artists historically have always struggled to make a living, make enough money from their art to live off of. That's why it's the struggling artist, the starving artist is a cliche, right? Because there's been so many throughout history, and even some of the legends now, artist legends, were starving artists in their time. And so anyway, I was a filmmaker in Los Angeles and Hollywood, and got somewhere with my scripts, but nothing was ever made by a studio. No movie or script was ever made by a studio. And so I made a independent movie that I wrote and directed, came out on Amazon Prime and Apple TV in 2019. And then through that, I got brought on by a producer to rewrite a script that he had optioned and direct it. And that was set to shoot in 2020. And then 2020 happened, pandemic, COVID, and my movie got shut down. And basically, after a year or so, with the pandemic, I'd see my movie wasn't going to come back. And obviously the whole film industry wasn't coming back in the same way for a while. And so at that point, I was like, this isn't going to happen. Or it's unlikely to. I got to switch gears. I got to find something else to do besides filmmaking. And that was really soul crushing for me because my first movie had come out. Wasn't a big hit or anything, but won a couple awards, best comedy movie at some festivals, and was on. A lot of people watched it on Amazon Prime, and it led, to this second movie, which was going to be a bigger budget with bigger actors. And so it was like this dream that I'd been chasing for so long, 15 years, was finally starting to come true. And then it got taken away from me. And so that was crushing, to be that close to the dream that I've been chasing for so long, and that is so hard to achieve, and that so few people that chase that dream actually catch it. Yeah, it was pretty devastating. I was in a deep depression for probably a year at least. And so then basically I come to Bali, and I'm just trying to find a new place and a new life. There was no real reason beyond that to come to Bali. I was living in the US, Los Angeles, for the 10 years leading up to the pandemic, and I wanted to try something new. And like I said, I was giving up on the filmmaking dream, or at least the Hollywood filmmaking dream. And so bought a one-way ticket to Bali. Now I'm here in Bali, and I start to go to this improv here, comedy improv, and it's a very casual thing. I don't know if you've done or seen improv in the US, but usually or in my experience where I did it, it was like somewhat formally organized, meaning there were classes and levels, and then after you do those, then there are there are shows to be done. There might be jams or what have you, but it's like everyone goes through training there basically, and then does the different shows or jams, right? Here in where I am in Bali, much more casual. It's just open. Anyone can come, whether they've done improv or not, and somebody is facilitating playing improv games. If you've seen the show Whose Line Is It Anyway, it's that. It's like little improv games. And so basically I start to do that. And I did it in the US. I took classes for a couple of years, but I never really went beyond the classes. In other words, doing shows and stuff, which is like where you go after you take classes. And I had my reasons at the time. Like it was very competitive because it was in Los Angeles, and people were trying to use it as a springboard to get into Hollywood as an actor or writer sometimes. And so it was very competitive, cutthroat, and political. And so I was turned off by that, and that was my reason for stopping. Plus, I wanted to spend more time writing scripts and whatnot, making movies. But what I've realized here in Bali and doing work on myself is that I had this story from childhood that I didn't want to draw attention to myself. I didn't want to be in front of the crowd or the group, basically, because in first grade, I had witnessed a kid in my class getting so brutally embarrassed that he never came back. He left the school, never came back. And so I internalized that as very bad things will happen if I'm in the spotlight in front of a group. And so I became quiet socially, and I would be on the wall at parties and whispering jokes to my friends, but in the corner. But then it also translated to me becoming writer and director. I didn't want to be in front of the camera. I love movies, wanted to make movies, but I didn't want to be in front of the camera because, like I said, I was scared of being in the spotlight. So I became behind the camera, writing, directing. And I realized that here, I was doing work on myself in Bali, And so I started to let it go of that story, and letting go of that, started to perform more. So it started just with going to these casual improv sessions where people are just playing games, and it's very casual and fun. Started there, and then started doing shows, improv shows. And I also did a one-man show that was like a combination of stand-up comedy and long-form storytelling and theater, basically, because I was like playing different characters. And so, yeah, stepping more and more into performing. And I'm in Bali. There's not a film or theater industry here. And it's not, it's detached. In other words, in the US, you think of performing, you start to think of the industry, either the film industry, comedy, stand-up comedy, or even online, performing something for online and getting fame or money or both. That's where the mind goes when you start to say, I'm going to pursue performing in the US. But here, because there's not that industry, I'm just doing it because I'm enjoying it and I'm getting something out of it. And it feels good, and what it boils down to. And I'm getting a response from an audience that they're getting something from it too, which goes back to what I was saying about being an artist. They're receiving something from the experience. They're laughing. In the case of my one-man show, which had also serious parts, they were emotional in other emotions, sad or inspired or what have you. And so this is like a whole new experience for me, because for years, all the creative stuff I was doing, the writing, directing, it was all geared towards essentially how do you make money or how do you impress the right people in the industry. And it was detached really from the audience itself. In other words, the observer of the art. And I wasn't experiencing that. And I wasn't giving an audience an experience, right? It was going to people, executives, producers that were analyzing it for, could this make money if it were made into a movie? And so now performing here and experiencing the direct to audience, right? Because they have a live audience, feeling good about it. I'm inspired by it. I want to do it more. And I don't see how it will make money. Like, even if I had that objective, I don't see how it will. There's just not that kind of industry here. People don't pay much money for shows here, just what the economy is here. It's not if you go to a stand-up comedy show in the US, you could pay $50, $100, a few $100 if it's like a really big comic per ticket, and they have big theaters. So there's money there, obviously. It's not like that here. And even as I develop and get better and all that, I don't see how it would make money. And yet I still want to do it because I'm getting these other rewards out of it that are very fulfilling and are disconnected from money. And I'm not even thinking about the money. And I'm not so worried about, will this attract the biggest audience, or will this be what I'm doing? Will it be for the biggest audience? I'm just doing what I think is the funniest, the most entertaining, the most interesting, compelling. And some people are going to like it, some people aren't. But it's much more rewarding for me to be doing the thing creating the art that I want to create, basically, and not trying to tailor it right for the Hollywood executives or producers, right? And I hope that I'm going to, like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm going to, at least for this next week, try more this format where I'm telling my personal story and then and sharing the lessons that I've learned and personal developments that I've had, and see how that goes, and see if that, see how it goes for me and for you that's watching. And so, basically the lessons that I'm learning here are there's value to creating, doing art, and pursuing things for the effect that it has on other people, and for the experience of feeling that effect and that response, and seeing the observer, observing the observer of the art. You know what I mean? Like I'm creating the art, someone's observing it, they're having an experience and a reaction, and then I'm observing that in some way, right? Sometimes I'm seeing it on stage, sometimes I'm just hearing it from the laughter, right? But that loop, that feedback loop of me putting out the art, in the case of maybe performing improv or one-man show, and then audience response, and then me receiving that, is an experience on its own. It's just an amazing experience. And I hope that you can take something from that and try to do your art or whatever you're creating for other people, and be able to get that response from the people and experience it and receive it. That's a big one, is receiving it. It's been a journey and a struggle for me to actually just receive it, meaning actually when people are laughing or people are applauding or people tell me, afterwards about how good the show was, to actually receive that and not dismiss it in my mind or ignore it or block it out because, having old stories of not being worthy of it, not being good enough. And so that kind of, I had blockers up against any kind of praise or acclaim. And so that's also been a journey and a work on myself to actually just receive it. But as I am able to put down that shield more and receive it more and more, the experience becomes more richer and more fulfilling. And so I hope that you can take that and apply it to your life in some way where you're creating something, an experience for someone else, and then being able to observe and receive whatever they emote or give in response to what you created, which could be a piece of art, could be a meal that you cook, could be a joke that you tell them, could be a hug that you give them. We don't have to take it so, it doesn't all have to just be some big piece of art or a big show like I'm mentioning. It can be something as simple as a meal, a food, a nice card that you wrote someone, and so on. So hope you got something from this video, and keep tuning back in daily, because I'm going to keep doing these daily and keep you updated on my journey.